And good evening, you all. My name is Rob Davis. I'm the editor of LARPBook, and we're going to have a little discussion tonight with the organisers of LARPCensus.org. So with me, I have Stuart Edwards, who also helps out on LARPBook.
Hello.
Ryan Paddy in New Zealand. And there's Ryan and Aaron in the States.
Hello.
And good evening, good morning, all. So I think I'll just start off with one quick question to Aaron and Ryan. And I would like to know a little bit about how you guys sort of got together and how you started off the Larp Census. So how did it all be?
Ryan, do you want this or do you want me to take it?
You start, Aaron.
Okay. I had the idea to make a LARP Census. It was kind of one of three big ideas that I had about live-action role-playing in the community that I've sort of been thinking about for a while. And I was asked specifically after WeirdCon, which is an interactive storytelling convention here in Southern California, at a dinner. We're just kind of hanging out after the convention, and someone asked me, how do we build the LARP community? How do we bring the LARP communities together? And I rattled off very quickly, I'd love to have a LARP archive, a global LARP calendar, and a LARP census. And started thinking about it and said, those are actually pretty good ideas. We should try and do them. So I poked about for a while, keeping this in the back of my head to try and get together. I don't have any technical expertise to set it up. But I always kind of wanted to do it. And Ryan posted on the LARP Academia email list. It's kind of an email list for LARP academics looking for some data to help with Wikipedia, editing the Wikipedia. And, I mentioned, like, well, I wanted to do the census. I've wanted to do it for a while. Maybe we can work on it. And Ryan, actually, took the initiative and emailed me, and we started a conversation that finally, years later, led to the census.
Okay, that's great. Ryan, have you got anything to add on that one?
Yeah, I mean, that sums it up pretty well for me, too. I've been working on the Wikipedia article, the English version of the Wikipedia article about LARP for quite a few years, and one of the difficulties is always finding good, reliable sources of information and data. And there was a question happening on that article in the discussion page about sort of how popular is LARP, how widespread is LARP, where is LARP popular in particular. And I went looking for sources of data, and I found a few. I'll show you some data later on that I dug up from Wizards of the Coast and from Denmark, various societies, but nothing really global and nothing really thorough. And so having heard about this idea, this LARP Census idea, I thought, what a fantastic idea, and being a software developer, I thought, this is something that I can make happen. It should happen, and possibly it won't happen unless I, kick in with Aaron and get it going. So Aaron's been leading the project, being in charge of communications, and I've been working away getting the software working.
Okay, that's absolutely great.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, that actually sounds quite similar to what Rob and I kind of wanted to do with LARPBook, to be honest with you, because we were saying there isn't anywhere really where anybody can kind of just go and find out what's going on within a particular geographical area at any one time. Nowhere really other than the sites that they put up themselves to promote their particular group. So I think this is an absolutely sort of fantastic idea, and in collaboration with other projects like this as well, we can actually sort of really get some good, valuable data and information out there for people to use.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I was actually surprised myself when I realised that there was an intersection here, because LARPBook, I wanted to talk about LARP in the UK, but also in the States, Australia, New Zealand, and what's been going on in Europe, and especially seeing places like Germany and the Nordic countries, just because they're fragmented and heavy information like this being generated is fantastic. It gives us all a chance to understand more what's going on. So yeah, this seems like a really natural matter to talk about. And also, yeah, just answering one of my other points as to why do this, and I think we've just done that.
Yeah, and just very quickly as well, if anybody's actually listening to this and actually want to ask some questions or what have you, if you actually put it within the Hangout, and post your questions there, then I'm sure we'll be more than happy to put them to the two guys here that this is all about tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll keep my eye on that, and hasn't happened yet, fingers crossed. Okay, coming on from that, then one other question is, how long are you planning to run the census for? How long are you going to sort of take data from, and how are you planning to sort of bring it back out then, perhaps over a time period?
Ryan, go ahead. You could take this one.
Sure. Yeah, we're looking at running until the end of 2014. That makes 3 months of runtime picking up data. And then we're going to have a phase where we will be cleaning up the data, trying to extract any joke answers and things like that. And then we will publish the data freely under a Creative Commons license so that any researchers, LARPers around the world can have a look at it. We're hoping that people will then pick that up and publish in various journals and LARP publications as well.
That's fantastic. Yeah, so 3 months of data, and then I like that it's under Creative Commons license as well. That's going to make it really open for people to work with.
Yeah, we're really the gatherers, I think, is the idea. We're picking up all the data, but well, I'm really excited to see what people are going to do with it, you know, because you just don't know what kind of treasures they're going to find in it. We've gathered a lot of different kinds of information, so I'm quite excited to see what people get out of it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, I can imagine. Just sort of a quick curiosity as well. Obviously, you're already getting data through. I know you're getting data through because I filled it in. So far, has it been quite a good uptake? Have you actually had a look at the data so far to see whether or not this is actually becoming a viable project?
Yeah, we've had quite a lot of responses. We had a huge uptake right at the very beginning, thousands and thousands of responses hitting us per day. It did sort of level off a little bit, as you'd expect, with that initial sort of viral impact of it spreading heavily on Facebook and via email and other social media. We're at about, I think, 24,500 responses, which is great. It would be great to have even more, so we're really keen for people who see this to go to larpcensus.org and fill it in. We will have a little bit of a look at some examples from the data so far.
Fantastic.
That's great. Absolutely great, yeah. Okay, and I'm just checking. I think we just had a message come in, so I'll just check that in a moment. I'll just get you guys off on another question. I know earlier on today we had some questions coming in from Facebook, and we've got a bank of 5 questions that Aaron forwarded me from Tara Clapper. So I'm just going to start going through a couple of those now, and we'll progress from there. The first question was, why is this important? I think we've touched on that a bit already, but anyone want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's really important to get this data and sort of just let LARPers around the world know that there's LARPers around the world, that you know, we're not isolated, that there's a lot of us engaged in this hobby or sport or art, whatever you want to call it, and you know, we're not alone, essentially. At least here in Southern California, or in America, it seems kind of isolated with isolated groups. And I, for one, was really surprised to find LARPers in the UK and the Nordic countries and stuff in 2006. I just couldn't imagine it. And I'm still sort of amazed and getting over the shock to know that there are so many LARPers in Russia, for example, that it's huge in Russia, and I'm just so curious. I want to know about what are they doing and how are they doing it, and how often, how are their LARPs different, how are they the same, how do they handle, you know, character creation and character death and all the things that we wonder about. And I think that getting this census and data will hopefully increase communication flow and information flow across the world, which my hope is that it will just make everyone's LARPs better, or potentially better, and more of them.
Yeah, and I would say possibly as well not make us feel so so isolated. I certainly know that, you know, there isn't a huge population that actually does LARPing if you look at the population of the planet as a whole. However, there does seem to be a lot more people out there sort of LARPing and running around than I first thought. Certainly we've seen that through some of the evidence that we've been looking at, and just by your responses, by the sheer volume of people that have already sort of filled in your census, sort of makes us sort of feel a little bit happier, I think, within ourselves, that maybe we're just not a small isolated bunch of nutters.
Yep, that's absolutely right. That's really important to get that. Second question coming from Tara was, who is the data for?
Ryan, do you want to go on that one?
Sure, yeah. I think primarily the data is for LARPers. It's for us to learn about ourselves and to find out about where it's happening in the world, and who's doing it, how it varies from country to country. Learning about what LARP in Croatia is like versus what it's like in Denmark or any other country, and that's one of the things we'll be able to segment this data down. As well as seeing the global picture, we'll be able to see the differences between the different countries, which I think is just the human curiosity. But I think there's also other people. I mean, the data will probably get analysed pretty heavily by researchers, statisticians, and they're best placed in order to really draw these kind of conclusions, write articles, and so on. And we'll get those kind of results coming out in various publications, so that we can learn what those interesting tidbits are. But I imagine also it'd be useful for the various industries that are forming around LARP, because I also sell LARP gear here in New Zealand. I've got a bit of an insight into the industries that are building up, and they're becoming more and more professional, selling costumes, selling foam weapons, and so on, all the props and so on. And those people will be interested in services as well. Like I know in the UK you have services where people provide taverns. They come to a game and they run a tavern or a bar and food service and all that kind of thing. The more they know about where LARPers are and what kinds of games we're playing, the better the services and products that we are providing, the more interest there will be in providing those services and products. As an example, purely as an example of the kind of value that people might get from it.
One of the questions we asked, we kind of designed this intentionally, is on the first page of questions, we ask, have you LARPed before? And it's possible that you can say no, you've never LARPed, but then you could say, are you going to LARP in the future, is the question. And so that analysis of someone who has not LARPed before, but yet says, I'm interested in the future, I don't know it's going to be that many, but any numbers of people that we do manage to get to say, I've heard about this live action role playing, I don't know what it is, but it kind of interests me and I'd like to try it at some point in the future, is basically a potential market. And I think that's a huge number. I would love to know what it is, so we know kind of where to reach out to, where are potential participants, where are they around the world, where should we be reaching out to get more?
Yeah, I mean, especially as the LARP Census basically cuts into the fact of what type of style of LARP do you currently do or are interested in. Because certainly that data I can see being used if someone did want to sort of start LARPing, suddenly become available. The sheer fact of, I want to LARP, I like sci-fi or I like fantasy or what have you. And that could be fed into some sort of service where it goes, oh, well, great, within 50 miles of you, there's actually a group that does this.
Yeah, we do ask those people who expressed interest in LARP. They do get some additional questions, some questions that everybody gets at the end around what else they do. Do they play computer role-playing games? Do they play tabletop role-playing games? Are they into arts, dancing, singing? What kind of people are interested in it?
Yeah.
We've found from the preliminary data so far that of those people who are already LARPing, 75% of them also do tabletop role-playing. So it's already quite valuable sort of insights into who the community is.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, that's great then. I think we answered the next one, but we'll just retouch on it. The next one was that will the data be publicly available?
Yeah, as Ryan said, we're going to release the data on via Creative Commons license. So it's essentially free. The data itself, once it's stripped of identifiers, should be available to anyone, whether they're a academic institution or even commercial institution. To get market information on their stuff.
Okay, that's been great. And again, we've got two more questions. We kind of touched on these, and one was how can we actually use the data to better create and market our own labs. I think we've definitely been talking about that. But did anyone have any extra comments on that? And if not, that's great.
No, I think you touched on that sort of very well. The fact that the information is going to be so publicly available that we can plug this into different databases and what have you to possibly generate some leads as well. And I think you touched quite a bit as well on question 5 that we had here as well from Tara, which is how will this help with online distribution of LARPs that we have written? Well, you've answered it yourselves. The sheer fact that the information is going to be out there, the geographic information is there as well. So that's going to definitely sort of help with getting the information out to these people. I'm assuming that the data is going to be data cleansed of any sort of personal information. So I think my question, I suppose, with that is when we look at it as getting the word out there about the different LARPs that are available to people, how will this help, other than knowing within a certain geographical area a lot of people like sci-fi LARPs or steampunk LARPs or whatever types of LARPs, how will that kind of benefit them in trying to get the word out then to other people?
Well, I think there's a lot of benefits that will help if people are doing one kind of LARP. They can say, okay, there's a lot of theater style, maybe Nordic style LARPs here. We could do more of that, or why don't we try and introduce a different style? There's not that many. Maybe we should introduce a traditional fantasy foam combat campaign LARP. The age ranges, the genders. If it's a very young group, if you notice that there's a large portion of young, late teens, early 20s in one country that like a certain style, maybe someone could be designing something for them. Just in my own LARP experience, I've been LARPing for many, many years, and the types of events, the types of LARPs that I enjoy, have progressed from some of the more, heroic, epic, gamist stuff to more experimental, more emotional, more dramatic, more real-world stuff. Not that I dislike that other kind, but I'm just finding as I get older that I'm gravitating towards a different style. And I don't know, is that an age thing? Is that me? Is it experience? But that kind of information of having ages might help designers kind of look at their growing demographic and population and say, okay, we have people who are going to be aging, maybe we should introduce more serious elements to our LARPs.
Yeah, I would say Rob would definitely agree with that. Rob and I also, oddly enough, have been discussing very much along the similar lines in the sheer fact of we're getting a bit older and running around and putting my knee out because I'm just not as fit as I used to be, apparently. That maybe we should be looking at sort of, perhaps I'll use the word softer, lighter, not so physically active LARPing, or just play wizards. I don't know.
On that fifth question of Tara's around published LARPs, if you want to write a game, what Aaron was describing as theatre form, also called free-form games in the UK. Those games with pre-written characters where you can just pick them up and run it easily. We found so far in the preliminary data that globally, a third of our respondees had played a game like that in the last year. And that's just at the international scale. You could zoom in on particular countries. You might say, for instance, in France they call it, here comes my terrible French, hoi cloy, I think, closed room. They call it a closed room LARP. And you might find, oh, there's a really big market there. Maybe it's worth me having my game translated into French, and it'll get more playtime there. Speaking as someone who's written those kind of LARPs, you don't make a great deal of money out of it. It's really enjoyable to know that people are playing them around the world in different places, and and also to get hold of people, other people's, get them translated into your language if necessary, and run them and get that little slice of a culture, a different LARP culture from another country, and play it in your own backyard. So that's one thing we may be able to say is, where are those games? What languages are they being written in?
That's a very good point. Yeah. Absolutely true. It is important, I think, that we can actually sort of help people understand where people like certain types of games. If they do want to publish, they can actually direct, I'm mashing my words now, but to direct attention to the right places.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, there's a huge, at least, movement translating the Nordic LARPs that that were coming out, kind of the single shot scenarios from the Nordic countries and the Knutpunk. Conventions, stuff like that, into English. They're writing it in Norwegian or Swedish, Finnish or Danish, and at least in America, kind of pioneered, by Lizzie Stark and other people on the East Coast who want to bring these LARPs to America. And translation is a huge thing. We're like, please translate these things into English, so we can run them. And I think hopefully this LARP Census will indicate other kinds of LARPs, that are going around. In other words, if we discover that there's a large amount of people playing, say, experimental LARPs or art LARPs in, Czechoslovakia or somewhere in Europe that we don't necessarily know about or other people don't know about, we can reach out to them and say, do you have scenarios? Can we translate them into other languages, or please translate them? There's a market, and we can expand, having scenarios, playing around the world, and I think that's great,
No. Sorry, Ryan, do you have something to get?
No, it's good.
Okay. That's fab. That's actually fantastic. Yeah. Well, I think at that point we've just gone through all of Tara's questions. I think, Ryan, you mentioned you had some data to show us, and you had some things you'd like to have a look at. Would you like to go into that now, Ben?
Yeah, let's do that. I'll just share my screen here.
Okay.
And this is going to be, a lot of this is going to be new for me too, so.
You've been keeping it very close to his chest, has he, Aaron?
Yeah. I just see it's all like code and what it is. I'm like, I can't translate it.
I'm just trying to get the screen share happening here, and I'm wondering whether only the host can do a screen share.
Oh, right. Very good.
I'm having trouble getting the link to do anything.
Okay, so get one. I'll just check that for you now, Ryan.
Okay, see if I have permission.
Yeah, Rob, if you're the host, you might have to give him screen share control. It might come from your end.
I'm just going to pick up the control panel now, see if I can do that for Ryan.
All right. So I'll just start talking a little bit while you're doing that about some of the background data that I came across when I was trying to find out if anyone had already, done this kind of research. I can see the control room popping up there. Will that?
And just give me the control room, access the control room now, so you can give you everything else you need as well. Screen share.
Great. So one of the pieces of research that had already happened, probably the largest scale one, was the Wizards of the Coast, who publish Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering back in 1999 when Ryan Dancy was in there getting D20 going and all of that stuff. And that open gaming kind of attitude, he published publicly the results of a large-scale cross-sectional survey that they did. And they did ask about live role-playing in that survey, and they got a lot of people to answer it. So it's quite interesting. They found in their sort of demographics of gaming that 6% of people in the US had at some point played a tabletop role-playing game, which is a huge figure, a staggering figure. 5.5 million people in the US. So this data is limited to the US because that's where they did this mail-out survey. When I say cross-sectional, it was of every demographic, it's a representational survey. And of that 6% who had ever played a tabletop role-playing game with 5.5 million people, 49%, basically half, had played a LARP at some time, which is 2.75 million people. An enormous number, and that's why I was really quite optimistic starting out that we had a big audience that we could potentially reach with this. Let me see if that screen shares.
Yeah, I've just given you present to everyone control, so hopefully that'll give you a screen share.
You are presenting, so I'm presenting now. You can see that.
I can see you. I can see. Nope, unfortunately, I can still only see you.
Yeah,
I'll just. Okay, let's see if I can get this going. Screen share. Okay, you're not seeing my screen at all.
Sorry, no. Is this hiding a bit of an experience?
I'm getting better saying you are presenting to everyone on my screen. Let me stop it and restart it and see if it.
Yeah. Okay. That's been cancelled out.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, sorry. I think maybe you set me up the screen share there.
Yeah. I have that. Oh, hang on. Aaron, have you got screen share going there?
Yeah. So see, Ryan, if you see mine, it's the LARP Census. So I clicked on screen share, and then the screen I want to share. So is that? So you're seeing me. So I clicked my screen share on. It should be click the little green arrow, the second window from the box, and then whatever your data is, whatever screen, it should come up. Like whatever window it's open. If not, you could quickly email it to me if you can, and I'll put it up on my side.
You want to start by doing a bit of presenting, then seeing you've got it going about the census itself.
Oh yeah, I don't have that open, but hold on. Okay, so I'll just show you guys the census.
Okay.
Okay, so now you're seeing the census?
That's right, yep, that's clear.
Okay. So this is what Ryan set up. Ryan, laid out and programmed the site and everything. And what some of the things we're really proud of that we got is languages. That we got a huge list of languages here that people can take, fill this out in their native language, and we picked kind of the, I think, 17 most common ones, and just basically asked people would they translate this for free, which was kind of a logistical management problem, not a nightmare, but it was difficult to get it. We didn't get some languages, and actually, the call, if anybody's out there and willing to translate this into Mandarin or Japanese and I think Turkish were the three languages we didn't get. We tried, but couldn't get someone to finish it. So we'd love to get more languages. If people listening to this are willing to translate, we'd love to get that. So you could select whichever language you want to take this out. Our FAQ here, our FAQ, kind of answers some of the questions too. If you want to know more about this, what this is and why we're doing this, your privacy, how we're protecting that, what's it for, what are you going to do with the results, and who Ryan and I are. And here's the list here of people that worked on it, translators, and we also had a lot of LARP academics look at this. LARP scholars take a look at our questions and give us feedback on how useful it was and things like that. So thank you. I want to totally, completely thank all the people on this list for helping us put this together. Absolutely would not be done without them. So thank you to the list of people. Wait, I'm not even going to try and pronounce a lot of the names, but I thank you anyways. Some of the questions I'll just kind of mention now, but before we start, when Ryan and I were going through this, something that I was learning was just LARP is different in different countries, and there's I mean that's kind of obvious, but it was kind of hitting us as we're trying to basically phrase a question. How do you phrase how do you even phrase it to someone who's saying, like, do you LARP? Do you participate in this? And we're looking at self-identifying LARPers, but for some people, like for example in the United States, the Society for Creative Anachronism, the SCA, many people in the SCA do not consider what they're doing to be LARPs, but some people do. So,
okay, that's interesting.
How do you define that? Would an SCA person fill this out or not? So and I remember one of the other questions we had. I don't know if you want me to go through this whole thing, but one of the questions we had is like, what location have you been in a LARP? In other words, like, a house, a private home, a hotel, at a convention. And Ryan and I were going back and forth about the idea of park. I think, what is a park? Between New Zealand and America, it's different. Is it a managed land by someone, by a government entity? Is it private land? Is it just open land that you could just sort of wander onto and do whatever and stuff like that? Because it's not the same, not the same sort of situation here that it is there. So just defining a term like park has different meanings in different countries, and even translating the word LARP into different languages kind of has a different word. And I was happy our Arabic translator, if you get this in Arabic, was kind of making up words for LARP. Some of the terms weren't really there, and so she was kind of helping create this sort of thing, which I think is great. That I'm assuming there's a word for LARP in Arabic now. So I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, I can definitely see some of the problems that you were definitely coming up with. What is a park? I mean, all right, for us, a park is a little bit of land down the road that you could probably fit a few hundred people on and what have you. But for some of the bigger countries, a LARP, to use the standardized size that everyone uses around the world, could be the size of Wales. So yeah, I can definitely see where some of the problems you could hit with this definitely comes into.
Yeah, I mean there's a lot of them. Do you guys want to go through this, or how you doing there, Ryan? Are you able to get a screen share?
I don't know that I will be able to, so I might just talk through some of that data. But yeah, I think probably stepping through the census a little bit, just might help to illustrate it.
Okay, so I will answer the census. I will go through it.
Okay, that's great.
So for me at least, this first page, these questions were the most important. This is what I really wanted just myself, was to find out how many self-identifying LARPers can we reach? How many are there? And I don't know. I'm in Los Angeles and Hollywood, and every television pitch season, they come around, and usually I or someone I know will be contacted by a reality TV series saying, we want to do a reality TV show about live-action role-playing, so come talk to us. And I'm like, okay, and the last question's like, how many are there, and what's the age demographic? And I'm like, I have no clue. I give anecdotal data and I give estimates based on stuff, but I really don't have hard numbers. And I know that Nero, the New England role-playing organization, which is really big, arguably the biggest here in America, basically fantasy foam combat. It's been around for many years. They did a survey years ago, and they had a number between like 50,000 and 2 million. And I'm like, all right, I need to narrow it down between 50,000 and 2 million. So this main page is the one that I really wanted, just so I can get how many are there. So you could select where you're living, and we wanted to make sure that it's not same country. We do have people in here. We have Taiwan, Palestine, the Palestinian territories and stuff like that. So we wanted to get that, hopefully with avoiding, national interests. So where do you currently live? What year were you born? This was a big discussion here. Where do we pick the year, or does someone put their age, stuff like that? We were going between a lot of ways of basically phrasing this. How do you phrase this? And I think our option, which you'll see in a lot of these, is prefer not to answer. You don't have to tell us if you don't want what year you were born. Obviously, we hope people will, but if you don't want to answer this question, you don't have to. And again, all over the census, a lot of this stuff is optional. If you look even on this first page, you can select where you live. You can not answer what year you're born. We're asking what gender you're identifying as, and we leave a text box here that you can put something in, which is, I'm sure, where a lot of humorous joke answers come. But a lot of people in the transgender, queer, people want to put some of their own answers, and I don't think we want to just delineate between straight female and male. So, and again, if you don't want to answer, you can select prefer not answer. Here, how would you describe ethnicity or race? This was a huge latecomer on here because ethnicity and race is a very big issue in the United States, but not so much in other countries. So, first it was out, and then I lobbied to put it back in. And then we had to figure out where to put it, and ended up here on this one. And again, we have an opt-out. You don't need to answer if you don't need to. So when did you last participate in a LARP? Basic time, pretty self-explanatory. How many years you've been participating? This, you can only enter years. So, like, I can't even put 100. So it has to be a number between 1 and 99. Do you intend to participate in LARPs in the future? Yes or no? And please indicate if you want to go on to the next set of questions. So it's really basic. I mean, you could just kind of put, this sort of thing. I don't want to answer that. I'm in the United States. Don't want to answer any of this. I could say I participated in a LARP in the last month and been participating, I think it's probably about 27 years for me. Do I intend to participate in the future? Yes. And then I could be done. That's it. So you could finish this in like 30 seconds, essentially. And there's 3 questions that you don't need to answer. You can just talk about how long you've been LARPing and if you can wish to do that and where are you. That's just the basic stuff. And if people want to go on, they can.
No, that's great. I mean, I like the simplicity on that. The fact that there's almost no barrier to entry there. It really is. Take a few options and click on click on to the next page, which is great.
So I'm going to put in this test here.
Yeah.
Just or here I'll put LARPBook.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when this comes up, Ryan will be able to delete these answers as we go through it.
That's a good idea.
So there we go. So then you could be done. Like I said, you could be done in 30 seconds if you go through this. But if not, if you continue on, you click yes, and then you go on to the next page. And want to highlight here again, all questions from here on out are optional. All these questions are optional. So we are asking a lot of questions later on. We'll ask about income and stuff. We don't want to force people to give us information they don't want to. This is a very voluntary thing. We want to protect privacy. We want to give people the option for not revealing something they want to talk about. We're just happy to get whatever information they do give us, and we'll put that in, to the data and put it together. So this one here was just participating in LARP, just general participation. How many you've been together? How many events have you participated? And we had to define, this. This was it. Like what counts as participation in a LARP? This thing was coming. What does it mean? I mean, obviously, playing a LARP or running a LARP, That makes sense. But what if you were like doing the marketing, like you created the website for a LARP event, but didn't actually, weren't at the site, but you did like the behind the scenes sort of thing, but you were never there. You didn't participate there. So even something defining like participated, this word, we had to kind of define it. So that's why we have, convention is a single event, the chapter, how many weeks, you spend, and that could be playing to sewing a costume to talking about it. What types of events have you gone to? And we have multiple checks that you could fill out here. How long did they last? And we had to kind of figure this one out. Was the LARP event? How far have you traveled? This is one of the biggest questions that we had. Ryan, do you want to talk about this one? The distance?
Yeah, along with ethnicity, this is one of those questions that we got a lot of feedback from certain countries. With ethnicity, it was places like Germany, where a huge portion seem to have answered their ethnicity as orc or elf, because it's a country where you're not supposed to talk about race or ethnicity. It's pretty much a forbidden topic. With the distance traveled one, we found in the very small countries that, well, not very small, but geographically not very large countries, people objected to the idea that a long distance within their country was more than a day's drive, because that would probably send them over 2 or 3 international borders if they lived in Switzerland or something. So yeah, of course we're looking at doing this again in 7 years or so, and we'll revise some of these questions that we got feedback about to make them even more sort of internationally acceptable. So me and Aaron will have the conversation along with lots of other people about race, ethnicity once again. It's already been around the park a few times, so we'll send it around a few more whether it should be in.
Yeah.
I can see distance travel will be big because, like, say, geographical size, the countries vary so enormously. It's people down on international level, yeah.
Yeah, we've been telling people just don't answer those options if they're not appropriate for your country. But it is valuable to gather that for the US, for Russia, Australia. Those are countries where you can drive for a very long time or fly. It takes 5 hours to fly from one side of Australia to the other. So they're well into that territory of more than 2 hours flying. Yeah. And it's the degree of commitment that they're making in order to get to a game. That's what we're trying to measure, how far they're willing to go.
Yeah, I'm certainly intrigued by what they say at the baggage check-in when they're taking their quarterstaffs and long swords and shields and what have you through. It's just all foam. It's all good.
Yeah, theatrical props. We say that quite a lot here.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's an instance. I mean, that is an issue, at least here in the States, especially with our security. People are bringing in some really wicked-looking weapons. It's got to go into carry-on, and just assume they, or sometimes they ship it, ahead of time. But it's definitely an issue. So some of these I'll kind of go through these quickly. What settings have you attended? This was one we went back and forth a lot on. What to describe a setting. What's the genre of the LARP, the content. So, this was pretty arbitrary. This one here, modern, between the year 2000 and today, was kind of arbitrary. So if you said something in the 80s, suddenly that becomes historical. But if you want to do, something from 2001, 2002, it's modern. That was arbitrary, as obviously as a lot of this stuff was. This one here is an interesting one that came in at the last end that I'm sure is going to be very difficult to kind of suss through these open-ended questions. Is that we're looking if you're adapting a LARP from something that's already there, like if you do a Harry Potter LARP or Battlestar Galactica or Lord of the Rings or something that already exists. What is it? How many Harry Potter stuff? So you could select here and put in, Harry Potter. There's one going on this weekend in Poland. You could do a Harry Potter here. So because there's these open text fields, a lot of info is going to be coming in there. So You know, Ryan, I don't know if you have any info on any of these.
We happen to have looked at Harry Potter already and found that something like 2 to 3% of people who LARPed in the last 12 months played in a game based on Harry Potter, either the movies or the books. That's internationally. In Russia, the figure's more like 4 or 5%. Very popular there.
Mm.
Yeah, that's intriguing.
Yeah.
I will just say, Aaron, I'm feeling a little bit old now, as basically you're classifying the 80s as historical.
Yeah,
we'll say that.
Well, that's what also, you know, I said I was LARPing in the 80s and in the 70s, so yeah, so we are historical. We're grognards. This was one of the big ones here that we asked. You know, one of the biggest separations in live action role playing is you know, the combat LARPs, which are called combat LARPs that are foam weapons versus theatrical. For at least my terminology, I don't want to separate between combat and theatrical, because I've been in theatrical LARPs with a lot of combat that's representational, using rock, paper, scissors and stuff, but there's been bloodshed all over the place. We're just not hitting each other. So this was a question to kind of look at how you know, conflict was handled. Do you actually hit each other? Is it, you know, rock, paper, scissors or something? You know, and then something else, or combat was not an element. Production values, I know this was something that Ryan and I went back and forth on a lot to determine what's production values. I don't know if you want to talk about this one, Ryan, or something else, some more data.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the preliminary data on that yet. That's going to be really interesting to compare between countries, I think. But it'll also be curious how we interpret it, because if the top one there, or the bottom option, is every costume, prop, and set was of excellent quality, I think there's going to be a lot of relativity when people answer that. Will they be talking about excellent quality for the LARPs they've experienced, or will they be saying excellent quality compared to a Hollywood blockbuster movie? So it'll be, you know, it'll be curious to see how we go through those.
That would be an interesting one to learn about, actually. Let's see how people are thinking about it. Certainly we see huge variations in sort of production quality in LARPs. And also the previous question on combat, that's a really interesting one. It's only because when I started LARPBook, over here in the UK, I think a lot of people just think of LARP as being LARP, and that covers the whole broad range of activities, whereas other countries seem to really like to define it into sort of types, often based around how the combat's expressed. So really be interesting to see how that one comes out.
Yeah, I mean,
sorry.
No, go right.
I was going to say, in the UK, you've got freeform, which for a long time never really self-identified as LARP at all, but which is exactly the same as what you would call a theatre form LARP in the UK. So it's there, and then you've got your Vampire, Werewolf, World of Darkness games. But often there isn't, I don't think, that massive a community crossover between those games and the fantasy live-action role-playing games in the UK. For instance, there is some massive, so there are probably silos existing there that, you know, that we'll be able to find out about.
Yeah, but there's data, yeah. Sorry, but please don't digress you too much. Carry on, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I'm kind of intrigued really. When I went through the census, I kind of spotted the how do you sort of resolve conflict with rock paper scissors. You know, I've only ever done LARPs where you resolve conflict by whoever can beat the living daylights out of the other person wins, really, with skill, guile, and cunning, and maybe a little bit of bribing of the ref. So I was quite intrigued with that particular question, I'll be honest.
That's actually something, Stuart, that's kind of the subtle, you know, if there's a hidden agenda that's in this, that's what it is. What you just said there is that, you know, to kind of introduce to everyone going through this and see, like, just this idea like, wait, what? You can do combat where you're not hitting each other. You could do something else, or there's LARPs where combat's not an element. Just to actually, plant that seed, that idea of what you can do in LARP. There's people who like this last one here, combat, it was not an element. I think for some people in some of the fantasy foam combat campaigns, if they're relatively new to LARPing, they think, a lot of people think that that's all it is. LARP means fantasy genre and foam combat, and that's what it is. And so this is kind of a subtle way of someone going through this and just say, wait, there's LARPs where there's no combat? I have no idea. And hopefully they'll kind of go, what are those LARPs? How can I play those? How can I try that? And if not, I'm not forcing anyone to play it, but just they have an awareness that there's LARPs beyond the LARP that they're in. So that's kind of the secret hidden agenda, is just that you can see this possibility of using something else besides, skill, guile, cunning, and bribery to resolve combat. That's an option, and hopefully that'll inspire more participants. Say, wait, I can do a LARP, and I don't know how to make all these foam weapons, but I can make a LARP without it. I didn't know I could, but now I see that there's other way to do this. And hopefully more LARPs will come out. So I was going to go through this relatively quickly in our last 10 minutes, unless you guys have something specific. Ryan, if you have something specific you want to look at, I was just kind of race through the remainder.
Yeah, just run through it in the next minute or two. And
yeah, that's good.
So what venues? Again, we had a bunch of definitions that we had to go over on this one. That we go in, but you can see what we came up with. How many people participated? That's pretty self-explanatory. This one, actually, I'm very interested in this one. Right here, this is a huge one. How satisfied are you with the quality of the LARPs you played in the last year? And
I can actually give some data on that one. I did it just before this meeting. I decided to stick it in the graph. I can't seem to share my screen, but I can tell you what the levels came out as. Where's my percentages gone? So the vast majority are saying that they are satisfied. About 50% are saying they're satisfied. Looks like about another 45% are saying they're very satisfied, and the remaining, 5-10% are in the dissatisfied period. So generally speaking, the people who answered the census are really happy with the games that they're playing in their areas.
Yeah, and I'm betting that a lot of that sort of that data, that information probably doesn't come more from how the game was probably put together and what have you. It was probably just being around like-minded individuals and just having a whale of a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's also vague, like satisfied. How satisfied with the quality of the LARP? What does that mean? We kind of drill into that a little later in there. I'll go through this fairly quickly. Creating LARPs, these questions, we want to ask specific questions about the people who are making the LARPs and design it. There's been a lot of surveys and that I've seen in data, and they focus very heavily on the player, essentially the player. Who is the player? Who is the player? But I'm mainly a LARP designer. And I'm designing a lot, and I have a lot of questions about, the people who are putting these together, and I'd like to kind of get some information about them instead of always focusing on the player. So we have a couple questions here for those who work on LARPs, whether they're a staffer, an NPC, things like that. That's what these questions refer to. If you're not working on a LARP, you can just skip all these and just go to the next page. Motivation. We spent probably the most time designing the census on these questions here, these motivation questions, which are on the Likert scale of strongly disagree to strongly agree of various questions. So Ryan, do you want to talk about these a little bit?
Yeah, so we did spend quite a bit of time on developing this. We used an exploratory factor analysis, which is a technique you use in psychological attitude surveying, where you come up with a bunch of questions. We came up with ours by looking at previous questionnaires and theories of why people LARP, like GNS, gamism, narrativism, simulationism, Bartle's theories, various other questionnaires that were out there talking about, the reason people LARP. So we came up with a big long list of about 50 questions. We ran it past sort of several hundred people, and we did that in a number of iterations. And they were from all around the world, and that allowed us to narrow it down to questions that were international and that had a global meaning, and also questions that I could do a factor analysis on, and it would start to resolve into various kind of factors of what people are interested in, like how much are they interested in the game, winning the game, having goals, overcoming challenges and achieving them, versus, for example, how much are they willing to lose a scene for their character to do poorly in a scene because it would be more dramatic and interesting in that scene. So I'm really curious to see how those results will pan out when we do some real factor analysis on thousands and thousands of results, and see how it varies by country as well. But I think there are some assumptions out there, stereotypes like that perhaps in the US there's a very gamey kind of attitude to gaming, to LARP. And then maybe in the Nordic countries it might be seen as being more dramatic. Let's see what actually comes out, and whether, because those just might be the very noisy, talkative people. We'll get to find out about everyone who answers.
Yeah, I'm thinking that this section correlated with age and gender and location, the other initial factors of demographics, comparing these motivation questions, I think is where a lot of, hopefully this is a census that launches 1,000 theses, thesis papers, as the researchers and scholars kind of dig into, these motivation questions compared to who the person is and where they're from and how long they've been LARPing and things like that. And to me, at least, I'm not trained to do that, to draw those conclusions. So I'm hoping that researchers are interested in this and are able to derive some very interesting conclusions about it. So this was, again, the motivations was definitely where we spent the bulk of the time, I would say.
Yeah, and some of the looking to see if we might spend time there. I certainly had to think about a few of those questions more than other pages, so I really hope there's good data there.
Yeah.
Anyway, please go on.
Yeah, almost done. I'm going to wrap through these. We're almost done. We got a progress bar. We can see we're almost done here. This is the final section. You're finished, so we'll put all that in. Thank you, Ryan, for programming in a progress bar. And then, do you make things? This is kind of the economics. Are you making money off of LARP? How much money do you spend? We had to put in the currency. This was something that made many of the Swedes happy. Is you can pick whatever what currency that you're paying in, so you don't have to convert how much money you spend. You could just pick pounds or euro or whatever.
And it will default to the country, the currency of the country you're answering from, or the location.
Yeah, so there's tons. So they can put that in. What portion of your income comes from LARP-related activity? Again, you have the option to prefer not to answer. How are you making your money LARP? Are you running a website? Do you own land and you rent it out to LARPers? Selling objects, costumes, or props, etc., etc. What else have you participated in? What else have you done about this? And again, here's the little hidden agenda on this question: is people can look and say, edit or produce LARP publications. Like, hopefully, all of the people seeing this will go, wait, there's LARP publications. There's something I can read about LARP. I didn't even think about that. Or I could do a LARP podcast. There is such a thing. I can teach LARP. Just planting these ideas that this is a possibility. That there's scholarly research on LARP. That they can then kind of go, wait, I want to know, is there such a thing, and where is it? And they can find this stuff. And lastly here, what interest do you have outside LARP? And we just put a whole bunch of things in here, from theater, stage theater, role-playing games, video games, paintball, combat sports, martial arts, things like that. And you could just pick a whole bunch of these that you're interested in. Once you click submit, and again, notice I didn't, click any of those. I just kind of filled out the first page, and then I think I might have put some in, but you could have left that whole thing blank. Then you reach the end here. Where you can put in email addresses for your friends to invite them. So Ryan, why don't you talk about this here, our emails and stuff?
Yeah, one of the ideas that I had when we first started into this, before I heard about Aaron's Larp Census idea, was the concept of a viral survey where you fill a survey in and then you provide email addresses and an invitation gets sent off to your friends and then they come and fill it in. And I've been thinking about the sort of the business aspect of LARP, which is one of the things I was keen to have in there. So when you enter those email addresses, we don't store the email address as it is in our database. We hash it, a one-way hash, which is a type of encryption. It's not possible to take it back in the other direction. And then next time if someone puts that same email address, we hash it, we compare it to the hashes in the database. If it's already there, we don't send another email. So on the one hand, we won't be sending spam, we won't be sending more than one invitation to the same email. On the other hand, we can't access those email addresses. Nobody can access those email addresses because it is a one-way encryption. It's interesting on this point that I thought this could be a really, really powerful viral mechanism. Perhaps it does speak to my age a little bit. Me and Aaron have got an enormous email trail, masses and masses of emails. But in fact, it's been Facebook that's been our best viral push. That's where the shares and the likes and the people discussing it has really happened, and it's probably a generational thing. Maybe we're missing out on some really young LARPers for whom Facebook is old-fashioned. We'll try again next time to reach some more social media.
Yeah, it's easy to underestimate how big social media is getting and how important things like Facebook are now. But yeah, perhaps next time you have to offer sharing through social media as well. But it's still good to see that in there. Okay.
So,
do you have anything to say from all this?
To be honest with you, it's. I've been fascinated by it. I'll be honest. Use this term very carefully. I do like statistics every now and then, and I will like to see the outcome of this to see where everybody is, what types of things they're doing, and it's nice to see that you have opened my eyes up to certain things that I wasn't previously aware of, like different types of combat systems, LARPing magazines, things like that, and Rob and I run a blooming website about the thing, so so it is good to kind of see a lot of these things sort of coming up. If there's nothing else from you two guys, Aaron and Ryan, is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
I want to add real quick. Sorry, Ryan. We're probably going to say the same thing. Is that the data is as good as as many people as we can get. So we really encourage everyone to fill it out and tell everyone they know. Tell your LARP group and other LARPers and people who have expressed any interest in live action role playing, however you define it, to fill this out. We really want to get as many people as possible. So we encourage you to share this and spread the word as much as you can.
Yeah, fantastic. So you can actually find all this up on larpcensus.org. Aaron, how can people follow you if you have the thing as Twitter or anything like that?
Ryan, do you want to give that? And I don't know if there's something else you want to say too, but do you want to answer that question?
Yeah, we do have a Twitter account at Larp Census. So that's all. Twitter is at Larp Census. And on Facebook, you can find us again, search for Larp Census, and if you like us there, you'll get kept up to date. If you complete the survey and you enter your own email address, then once we're ready to publish the data, then you'll be notified when that happens. We're going to use that very sparingly, so you'll only hear about it when the data is out, and then maybe in 7 years' time when we run the census again, we'll send out emails to all the people who previously answered it to let them know it's running again.
That's absolutely fantastic. I think then we've sort of gone through everything we need to and cover everything. So I just like to take a moment just thank you guys for all participating and sharing this with us. It's been, like Stuart said, it's been absolutely fascinating and incredibly interesting. So thank you very much.
Yes, the geek in me is very happy.
Good. We want to make geeks happy.
Good job.
Great stuff. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you very much. I'll be posting this up on LARPBook later on. I'll try and include a lot of your links to Twitter and Facebook and the site as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'll take us off there now. Cheers, guys.